She thought she was saving children. But 20 years later, those same children would be the reason the world saw her differently, and the reason her life sentence ended. This isn't just a story about crime or punishment. This is a story about one woman's sacrifice, survival, and how kindness came full circle in the most unexpected way. Our story begins with a woman named Angela, a black woman born and raised in a tough neighborhood where opportunities were few, but challenges were endless. She had grown up knowing struggle, knowing what it meant to go to bed hungry, and she promised herself that if she ever had the chance, she'd help someone else avoid the same pain. One night, walking home from her second job, Angela crossed paths with 4 young children huddled outside a gas station. They were dirty, scared, and clearly had nowhere to go. Their parents? Nowhere in sight. Most people would have walked past. Some would have called child services. But Angela did something different. She took them in. At first, people thought she was crazy. She wasn't wealthy. She didn't own some big house. All she had was a 1-bedroom apartment and a heart that couldn't bear to see children lost to the streets. Somehow, she managed to feed them, clothe them, and send them to school. They became her family, even without the paperwork. But behind Angela's kindness was a shadow she couldn't outrun, an old mistake that would soon come back to take everything away. Years earlier, Angela had fallen into the wrong crowd. In her early 20s, pressured by desperation and bad influences, she had been involved in a robbery gone wrong. Nobody believed a young black woman from her side of town could change, so when she was arrested, the judge threw the book at her, life in prison. But here's the twist: after a series of appeals, her sentence was reduced, and she was paroled early. The system gave her another chance, though most never expected her to make anything of it. Angela, however, was determined to rewrite her story, and that's how she became the guardian to those 4 children. For 2 decades, she poured everything into them. She pushed them to study hard, stay away from gangs, never repeat her mistakes. She sacrificed new clothes, new dreams, and even her own health just to make sure they could survive. And quietly, every night, she carried the heavy truth. Her past conviction meant society still saw her as a criminal. But those 4 kids, they saw her as a mother, a protector, and a savior. Now here's where the story takes its wild turn. 20 years later, those kids weren't kids anymore. They were grown adults, a lawyer, a teacher, a social worker, and a community organizer. Each of them had risen from homelessness to success, and they all credited one person, Angela. Still, Angela's criminal record haunted her. It limited her job opportunities. It limited where she could live. And most painfully, it stamped the word felon on every dream she had. The children she raised began digging into her old case. The more they studied, the more they realized how unfair her sentence had been. Harsh sentencing for first-time offenders, racial bias in the courtroom, things that had stolen decades of her freedom. And so, the children she once saved decided to fight for her. The lawyer among them led the charge, filing paperwork for a full review of Angela's case. The teacher used her connections to get media attention. The social worker brought in nonprofits to shine a light on reforms for women like Angela. And the community organizer? He rallied thousands of signatures in support. Slowly, the tide began to turn. Reporters covered Angela's story, how she had taken in 4 homeless kids and raised them into successful adults despite her past. The courtroom that once treated her like a statistic now saw her as a survivor who had turned her life around. But the battle wasn't easy. Old prosecutors pushed back. Appeals dragged on. There were nights Angela cried, unsure if freedom from her past would ever come. Yet, standing beside her, day in and day out, were the children who refused to give up on the woman who never gave up on them. The ending nobody saw coming. Finally, after years of petitions, hearings, and public support, the courts made their decision. Angela's case was reopened, and this time, justice was different. The judge declared her original sentence overturned, and her record was cleared. After 20 years of being defined by her past, Angela was finally free, not just from prison walls, but from the label that had followed her all her life. And here's the powerful image to leave you with. When the verdict was announced, Angela didn't stand alone. She stood surrounded by those same 4 children she had once rescued. Only this time, they were the ones rescuing her. Her story teaches us one unforgettable truth. Sometimes the kindness we plant in others becomes the very thing that saves us. If Angela's story gave you chills, Imagine how many more untold stories are out there, reminding us that one act of compassion can change lives across generations. So if you believe in second chances, hit that like button, share this story to inspire someone else, and smash that subscribe button so you never miss more powerful stories just like this one. Because you never know, one story could be the spark that changes everything.